Good day, good morning. Monique Allen here, certified holistic nutritionist and PCOS for the fertility educator. And I'd like to welcome you to the first official episode of the Beyond the PCOS Diagnosis podcast, where we talk about all things related to PCOS life and navigating everything from more of a scientific background, more of a personal lived experience. So we are going to talk about it. All right. So today's topic is going to be IVF, fertility, PCOS, diet, all those things combined to be explored and learned about. Okay, so if you see me paring down, don't mind. I have my notes here. It kind of helps me to keep on track and make sure that I'm not going off on a tangent. All right, so let's talk about IVF. Let's talk about why it's typically recommended for women with PCOS. Let's talk about the reasons why you may choose not to do it. Let's talk about the financial constraints. Let's talk about the preparation for it. Let's talk about all of it. Okay. So backtrack. So if you're a woman with PCOS and you've reached a stage where you're ready to start your family or even considering figuring out what you need to begin or where's the best step or ensuring that your body's properly prepared or optimized for fertility when you do decide that you're ready to start your journey, we're going to talk about it. So one of the first things that likely happen is that you're going to go to your doctor. He or she's going to put you on either metformin or a combination of metformin or clomide. Metformin to help to control your blood sugar, and clomide basically help to encourage your body to ovulate. If that doesn't work, the next step is probably to look about assisted fertility techniques or assisted reproductive techniques, right? So that tends to be the IUI, the IVF, whether that be standard IVF, mini IVF, or micro IVF, because they're different variations of IVF. And we're going to talk about that in a few. So just to go over quickly, IUI and IVF, right? So IVF is a very expensive procedure. It really isn't cheap, regardless of where you do it in the world. It might be cheaper to do it here in the Caribbean versus to do it in the States or Canada or even some parts of Europe, but it's still a very pretty penny. And if you're going to be paying that pretty penny, you want to ensure that your body is fully optimized to improve or increase your chances of conceiving. And we're going to talk about what you can do to do so. We're going to talk about factors to consider and all that. So just to quickly go over, your doctor suggests that you do the IUI with a fertility specialist. So a quick explanation of what IUI is and how it's different from IVF. So for IUI, what happens is that you go in to see the fertility specialist. They give you FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, around day 2 or day 3 of your cycle. You continue to take that daily injection for the next 10 to 15 days. Then you go in and they do blood work to kind of look at where your markers are for estrogen. You also do an ultrasound to see what's happening with your follicles. And when they see around 1 to 3 follicles, they say, all right, they're going to give you this hormone called ACG, what basically induces ovulation. You're going to go ahead and ovulate maybe around 40 hours after receiving that injection. They're going to insert your partner's washed semen or washed sperm into your vagina, and hopefully it combines and you have a beautiful, beautiful baby in 9 months. That's why IUI. IVF is more so a bit more technical, although it does have similar starting processes where you would get the follicle stimulating hormone, which basically stimulates your follicles to producing eggs or follicles, forgive me, follicles, right? So that typically happens again for another 10 to 15 days. But I should say that when it comes down to doing IVF, there are certain risk factors for women with PCOS because there's a likely chance that you may end up having hyper ovarian stimulation, which basically means that your ovaries produce a whole bunch of follicles, and that can end up being very painful for some women. So that's also something to consider. That's a specific experience that's likely to happen to women with PCOS. All right, so to continue, you go in, you take your daily injections, you go back in, your doctor does the blood work, he or she does the ultrasound to see what's going on. When they see around 10 to 15 follicles, then they will go in, use a tool inside through your vagina, to through your cervix to your ovaries, and they're going to extract those follicles and then search for the egg within those follicles, and then take a sample of your partner's sperm, combine it with the egg, basically switch it around. I'm not sure if I'm using the exact right analogy, but I'm trying to find the best words to explain it. Put it down for around 5 days, because that's around the length of time that it takes from the fertilized embryo, which would have happened in your fallopian tubes, to actually travel to your uterus to implant. So they want to give it a similar amount of time. So basically 5 days, and then they see which one's embryos are the most healthy, and then they'll go ahead, choose one, and then implant it. That's for standard IVF. But for micro IVF, this tends to be used with men that have issues with fertility. So think male factor infertility. So rather than having a sample of ejaculate being collected, what they'll do is that they go in and they take the sperm from the testes and then inject it directly into the egg, again, incubate it for around 5 days, and then go ahead and do the transfer. So that's a bit of it. So I know persons tend to assume that once you do the IVF, you're going to automatically fall pregnant. No, typically doctors say that it takes around 3 rounds of IVF before you can have a successful transfer and a successful pregnancy. So that's another thing to consider. And if you want to go the route of IVF, it's important to ensure that you're doing all the things to make sure that your body is functioning well and fully optimized. Don't just imagine that because they're taking the egg and the sperm and put it together, automatically is going to produce a baby. No, because if the egg isn't the best quality, if the sperm isn't viable, or if the sperm DNA is damaged, or if your uterus is not receptive to this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful embryo, you're going to have challenges. So let's talk about a few things that you can do to improve your likelihood of having a successful IVF or even IUI experience. So mind you, things that I'm going to mention now are things that you should have been doing at least 3 months, preferably around 5, but at least 3 months prior to going in for your first round of IVF, that is your egg retrieval. That's when they give you the FSH, cause your ovaries to produce the multiple follicles. So before they actually do that, there are things that you should be doing at home, modifications to your lifestyle, modifications to your diet that can improve your chances of a success rate. So again, if you see me peering down, don't mind, I'm looking at my phone. I have a habit of going off on a tangent. So this basically helps me to more so control my thoughts. So we're not here just talking about a whole bunch of random things. All right. So one thing you want to prioritize is the health of your eggs. So although your fertility specialist will be able to select the healthiest among the set, you want all of them to be healthy. You want all of them to be of good standard. You want all of them to be ideal. Because again, not because you're doing the IVF means that your egg quality will necessarily be the best. And that's a factor that many women with PCOS experience, because it could be due to inflammation, it could be due to issues with insulin, it could be due to issues with stress. It could do with issues with low thyroid function, because those things come into play when it comes on to fertility. Women with PCOS likely can develop issues with thyroid dysfunction or thyroid issues. So those are things to consider as well. So again, you want to ensure that your egg quality is the best, absolute best that it can be, and you can make changes into your diet and to your lifestyle to do so, to improve it. A simple thing that you can do that many persons tend to overlook is ensuring that you have healthy fats in your diet. Because think of it, let's go back to high school biology. You have the cell membrane, right? Your cell membrane needs to be able to be penetrated by your partner's sperm cell, which also has a cell membrane. And then that needs to form an embryo, and the embryo then needs to affix to the walls of your uterus. Again, which is important for you to have a good cell membrane for implantation to take place. And also when it comes on to transfer, because remember, you're removing the embryo, pardon me, you're moving the egg, because it's not quite an embryo yet. You're removing the egg and you're moving your partner's sperm from where it's naturally housed, that's in your body, and you put it in a whole different environment. So it has to be healthy enough to withstand the process of the transfer. Basically, that's what I'm saying. So yes, ensure that you have your healthy fats, ensure you have your fruits and veggies, and ensure that you are managing stress and reducing oxidative stress. So another thing that you should also consider is the foods that you're eating, obviously, but also how you prepare the foods. Definitely. So for example, this comes more into thinking about going back to fats, the type of oils that you're using. Are you using hydrogenated oils? Are you using heavily processed oils? Are you using a lot of seed oils? Those things can have a negative effect on your egg health and your egg quality by causing inflammation. That's another thing. Another thing is when it comes on to IVF is that although I know when you take IVF, your doctor will be giving you the fertility drugs needed to induce ovulation. But if you're at a position where your body is able to ovulate on its own without the need of the fertility drugs, if you do end up deciding to go the route of IVF, because there are a few reasons why women choose IVF. For example, if you have a physical blockage, that could be a blockage of both fallopian tubes. Most likely, a doctor would lean or encourage you to do IVF if your partner has low sperm count or low sperm quality or issues with motility or even morphology. Your doctor would encourage you to go and do the route of IVF. But if you're in a position where you're able to get your body's ovulating naturally, when you do go in and start the process that is taking the FSH or the fertility drugs, it will not only increase the health, likely improve the health of your eggs, but also the number that they're able to retrieve. So that's a significant thing where diet and lifestyle comes into play. Another thing that really helps also is weight loss. And I'm not talking anything ridiculous like 60, 80, 90, 100 pounds of weight loss. No, just even around 10 to 15% of your current body weight is enough for your body to support ovulation naturally. And also weight loss for men, because a lot of stress tends to be put on the women, and men tend to imagine that they don't play an important role, especially when it comes onto their weight. Because if you're overweight, as a man particularly, right, and you tend to carry a lot of fat on your thighs or around your midsection or your belly, what happens is that these areas generate a lot of heat and your testes need to remain cool. So the heat produced by your body due to the excess fat in your tummy and your thighs can have a negative effect on your sperm production. So that's all one of the reasons why weight comes into play when it comes down to fertility with men. Also issues with erectile dysfunction, also issues with sperm quality, nutrient absorption, all those things. So going back to my lovely, lovely listing here, another thing that also should be important or should be considered is the how receptive your uterus is. Is your uterus able to nurture that embryo? Does it have that beautiful, rich blood supply? What is going on with your progesterone levels? That's important. Definitely important, because progesterone is needed to keep everything intact and also needed to reduce your chances of having a miscarriage, which is a 25% likelihood for women with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And the reason for that is because it goes back to egg quality and progesterone being produced by the corpus luteum, which is a whole different topic, and I really don't want to jump into that right now. And also going back to men, the health of the sperm is definitely important. So things that you can do is ensure that you're exercising. That way you're improving your testosterone levels. Ensure that you're adequately hydrating, because the sperm is carried in the semen and the semen is made from fats and also water. So you have to make sure that you have enough semen that can basically help to transport the sperm cells. Those things are important. Physical activity, I said that before, I believe I did. You have to make sure that you keep your heart pumping. Why? Circulation is important for good blood flow to the organs, to the testes, to the penis. Again, maintaining a strong erection. As you can imagine, that's very important. And yeah, so again, when it comes on to falling pregnant, whether you want to do it the natural route or the assisted route or the IVF IUI, it's important for you to put your body or put yourself in the best position to get amazing results. So if you're at the point where you're ready to expand your family and you're ready to start conceiving, I want you to go ahead and scroll down, look in the bio. I'm going to include a link to my PCOS fertility checklist. This basically covers all the things that you wish your doctor would have told you about falling pregnant with PCOS. Go ahead, scroll down and access it down there. My contact details are also included. So if you need additional help or personalized support, whether you want to go the natural route or the route of IVF or IUI, I am here to help. Go ahead and reach out to me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Also, be sure to follow me on my social medias. They're also included there below. And check out my website. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.